CosmicSkeptic is a YouTuber. He does rationality stuff. He does God, and he's big in the vegan community for making arguments for veganism. I think is one of the, though not a purely vegan YouTuber, was one of the more cogent voices for it, and has made a YouTube community post saying that he no longer is pure, no animal diet at this point. It was long, and he acknowledged, the feelings that he was having about sort of talking about this, but feeling it was necessary to share. It was a bit vague as to the reasons, and people are interpreting, is it health? Is it just inconvenient? What's changed? And presumably he'll make a video, but I'm going to reach out. I would love to talk to him.
That's a giant change, to get on the internet and tell people, debate on veganism.
Well, that's
and
also
then start
fascinating
eating,
to me.
Like, go out there. It's one thing to be a vegan and then turn to eating meat, but to get out there and then crusade for it and debate people.
And I'd love, he was a ardent, strident voice for it. People are throwing his quotes back at him. And that, even just that, which I find honestly commendable. Not just the reversal of opinion, which is not necessarily commendable, but the publicly stating of it, which he didn't have to do. He's not like a celebrity that people are tracking down and going to catch at a restaurant and one day expose him. He could have hidden this, I think, pretty easily, and just not spoken about it. And I find it commendable that he did choose to speak about it, because I think with any moral stuff, and I feel this way when people talk about socialism, and it's like they want socialism, but they won't make their company socialist. You know what I mean? Like, they won't do, no, I want it, is like, it is so much more valuable to know the ways in which we might fall short of an imagined moral ideal, what actually gets in the way, because it's only from that perspective that you can start to figure out with socialism or with veganism, is there a way that we can work through these? Like, because if you're getting hooked up here and you love socialism or you love veganism and you're unable to follow through with it, this is the bottleneck that we need to talk to, because you're clearly persuaded.
Yeah, you're a greatest warrior.
You're theoretically persuaded. But if you can't follow through, this is probably a sticking point for so many people.
Yeah.
And so it's like really valuable when people will open themselves up to honest discussion around these
and
things.
learnings. What did you learn to come to this?
Yeah. And I'd be deeply curious if
his body failed him and he couldn't continue it or whatever.
Let's say it didn't. Like, to hear, which definitely this exists in my life, people really, there's honesty, which is telling the truth. And there's integrity, which is making your words, actions, and beliefs align.
Honor.
And a lot of people pretend to have integrity. And obviously integrity is good, and don't make me give a 5-minute speech on why you want to be integrous. Duh. But when people prize integrity, what I find is they often sacrifice honesty. So they make their words and their actions align, and they are dishonest about their reasoning that gets them there. So they, I felt this in a moment, and I really enjoyed the conversation. It's getting clipped with Destiny when we was talking about his experience of, why he eats animals.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, he's claiming integrity. His words are in alignment with his purported beliefs, but I don't believe this. Like, this doesn't feel honest. I feel like the honest position that I sensed from him is, yeah, I can see that this is wrong and I do it anyway. Like, I can see the argument, that the value of the argument that you're making, that there are inconsistencies in my belief structure in life, and this is not something that I'm pushing on right now in my own life, which is very human, very true. It occurs, and I think creating space to be honest without demanding integrity immediately of people is actually the long-term way to solve the stickiest issues in humanity. Because I think the way that you actually develop integrity, there's ways in which it's going to come easy to you to be integrous. You're just reminded, oh, I need to click that into gear, shift how I talk about that, I can change it. But for the hard stuff, you need to sit in the discomfort of honestly recognizing that you are not living in integrity and allowing that to be true for a period of time until something maybe moves in you.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't.
A lot of comments wanted to know why, because you just brushed over it in the Destiny interview, why you are a pescatarian.
I'm going to eat. I'm not willing to go full on not anti-natalist, but like my life involves killing, period. That's where we are technologically. It's like, even if all I do is kill beans, I am going to cease life on this planet in order to survive. And I am committed arbitrarily to that, right? So let's start there. That is going to exist for me. It seems to me, if I zoom out, like
that's an interesting point already. That you just acknowledged that I don't hear in anyone else. It's like, if you have a phone, like we're going to talk about eating meat, and we're like the Cobalt guy on Joe Rogan talking about human slavery that was involved to get your phone here, and it's like people dying because of the fumes, and the first acknowledgement of like, no, by me existing, there's going to be consequences.
There are negative consequences for other lives through
your existence.
My existence, period. End of story. And it's like not 1-to-1, because I can't eat one bean. I got to eat all the beans. If I'm like, I can't do it. And I am committed arbitrarily to continuing my life. So we have that. The other thing is that consciousness, suffering, these things I do not have direct access to. I am only looking at cues. So I have direct access to my own consciousness, my own field of awareness, and my own suffering. But I actually don't know that you're not a robot. What I perceive is that you cry like I cry, or yell like I yell, or hurt like I hurt, and I am moved empathetically by that, and I project an experience that I have onto you, that I imagine that it is similar, and I then engage with the golden rule, which is I wouldn't want that unnecessarily either. And there is some sort of an agreement, but it's not even dependent upon, like, of course, if you treated me poorly, I would do it. But let's just say that you were neutral to me. I would still not want to I wouldn't eat you because of that. And also then on top of all of that, you're my brother and I love you and I have a connection. But let's hold that to the side. Let's pretend you're a stranger. So then we go, and you can apply this to cows, pigs, my dog, someone else's dog, bugs, all the way down. And what you find is that what appears to be a very clear line of like, there are humans and there are this and there are dogs and there is this, is that there seems to be gradations of consciousness, awareness, suffering, capacity, my ability to intuit that suffering. So like, take, I don't know, a sea creature, a sea anemone that is an animal. Like, can I have a clam? Can I have a mollusk? That is a animal. It is alive. I presume it has, and I am projecting onto it some level of consciousness. We can cut it open and look at some of its neurons, but like, that is not how I know that you have pain. Like, I did not go into your brain and check your fucking pain receptor. I intuit that you have pain based on your reaction. And when you try to get the clam and it closes, something tells me it doesn't fucking want you to eat it,
It's the experience of suffering.
So for me, where I land on is people, which, by the way, I'm putting into a category of sameness, which they are not, because there are people that
don't feel pain,
have lower levels of consciousness and that don't feel pain. And there's all these different things. But broadly speaking, like, okay, there's so much similarity there in my sense of their suffering and the necessity of me. This is another thing, which is like, people do eat people in dire situations. Were I trapped on Mount Everest and there were 7 of us and there's one, like, I don't know what would happen.
One guy froze.
But that is not a necessity given my material things, and that's an easy no for me. And then as I move down the line, I go, there's this dog that lives with me. I love him very much. He seems very similar to the expression that I would see in a cow or a pig, or, especially those two that are very common in America. And I go, yeah, I don't want my dog, which I can feel that with, and cows, which I've connected with, to be in those positions where it seems like they're suffering so deeply. Then I go to chickens and I go, okay, what am I receiving here? They seem kind of dumb. Turkeys seem really out of it, but still there appears to me, and this is where it becomes my own subjective projection of the capacity to suffer. I am not referring to, we can talk about the brain chemistry and how their brain might be similar to mine, but I actually think that where I really ground my moral sense is in an intuitive sense and not in a biological having sliced something open. Though I am open to that updating, like if I found out, imagine that you found it, that scientists determined that rocks felt excruciating pain. When you stepped on a rock, it was like having someone slam your hand in a door. You know what I mean? And they discovered it because the way that the neurons did, like, that's possible. But it would so clearly contradict with your experience of rocks and be like, it'd be so hard to connect with that. I don't know how many people would find that moving if, like, you know, top scientists concur. And so that's sort of my point when people point to these studies of like looking into the brain of a human, a cow, a fish, a bug, etc. I find that less moving than the moral intuition, though I wouldn't bar that outright. So
category of fish now.
Then we move down into fish. And this is the area where I go, I feel very certain about mollusks. Something about it. I don't eat squid, by the way. Like, it's not just like because you're from the sea. Like, I watched my squid friend. Or my
done.
I was
you don't
done.
have to tell
I
me
was
anymore.
Fucking done, dude. That was it. Yeah, I got a friend, dude.
Moral of the story, my squid friend was actually the friend of the guy.
Yeah. My octopus teacher or something
Yes.
it's called.
Squid Games. I get it. We watched it.
Yeah, and so then I go, okay, I'm pretty sure bugs are okay when I look at bugs, though sometimes I grab spiders and put them outside instead of smashing them. Mollusks, and then fish for me are that like dividing line where my own convenience does enter into it, because like, okay, to survive off mollusks for me is like that upsets my stomach, and there's, that's tougher to do practically. Fish are still well within a practical range of, I can get my taste buds made happy. I can get protein from them in a dense protein source. I did lose 15 pounds, basically, not simply as this, but like when I stopped eating beef and chicken, it became tougher to maintain weight, and I'm still okay and I'm healthy, but there are consequences to that. And though I could make it up in protein shakes and fish, practically that has not happened for me. Fish are an area where I'm open to discussion, truly. I'm open to discussing different types of fish. I'm open to discussing all of this. But for me, that is a gray zone that I have landed on, yes. But I'm not committed to it for the rest of my life. Like I could hear and see arguments because the way that I interact, I don't know. When I was little, I didn't like hooking them. But then I was told that they didn't matter, and you take it out, and I don't know.
The hook gets stuck in there.
But then they bite you. Then they keep biting the same hook over and over again. You go, is there anything going on in there other than like stimulus response?
Come on, humans do the same thing. Keep going back to my ex.
To be fair, my dog would do the same thing.
Yeah.
He would just,
oh my God, food.
He got sprayed by a skunk and didn't stop chasing
learn.
skunks. Yeah. So yes, that's where I go, and it's sloppy at the range of fish. I feel clear
seems sloppy.
But it's not like if anybody's like, oh, animal products. It's like, really, you wouldn't eat a cricket, or you wouldn't eat a mollusk, or you wouldn't eat a this, because at some point you're getting so close to what would appear to be the consciousness level of a Venus flytrap, which by the way is outsmarting flies every damn day. I guess what I'm saying is I see this stuff as existing on a continuum. I think that it is unfair when people try to like draw these hard lines and say that their line is real, because it seems that even within the range of humans or dogs or
I'd like to draw two lines.
Yeah.
How about hunting your own food? And how about invasive species of deer on Hawaii?
So I've talked about this a million times, so I don't want to go too deep into it.
Okay.
But yes, clearly those things mitigate for me.
Okay.
If you're going to hunt your own, this is primarily an issue with the, I guess you could farming. Apparently there are two kinds of vegans. There's a rights vegan, which is like, it has a right to life in the same way that like, it doesn't matter if a human suffers when you kill a human. It has a right to its own existence. And then there are welfare vegans, which is concerned primarily with suffering. I find myself concerned primarily with like suffering, and I guess fall into the category of a welfare, but you can make the rights argument as well.